Welcome back to the channel. It's Martin Santise here, and in this video I am going to talk about how I stay motivated to manage my type 1 diabetes. And this video is going to be very helpful for you if you're someone that is struggling to keep motivated to manage blood sugar levels. If you're someone that experiences diabetic burnout, if you're someone that manages well but then falls off track and they neglect their diabetes, pay very close attention because you're going to get a lot of useful information here. And I'm going to talk about how I go about managing my type 1 diabetes and how I stay motivated and disciplined in order to keep myself in a good, healthy range with my blood sugar levels and A1C. So to give you a little bit of a background about me, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in 2017. And when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, it was the worst thing that literally ever happened to me. I went into a bad depression. I didn't understand how my life got ripped right underneath me, and I was in a very, very bad place, and I was suffering. I was suffering physically from the fluctuations, suffering mentally because I couldn't understand it. I couldn't understand how this had happened to me. Emotionally, I was a mess. I was just in a very bad place. And throughout my early stages of my diagnosis, I was struggling with burnout. I was struggling because I was doing things that the doctors would tell me, but then it wouldn't work. I would do the things the doctors was telling me, and I wouldn't get the results. So then that led to burnout, frustration, overwhelmment, and fast forward, I was able to bring my A1Cs at diagnosis at 11.7. In 9 months, I was able to bring my A1Cs down to a 5.1, and I have been able to maintain my A1Cs below 5.7 for about 5 years now. So everything that I'm doing, I'm a type 1 diabetic, and everything I'm doing is something that you could do as well. But I strongly believe it starts with having a good belief system in order for you to have long-term success with type 1 diabetes, not short-term. I don't want you to burn out ever, right? So I'm gonna give you what I do in order for me to stay in a good mental headspace so I don't burn out and I don't get overwhelmed and I don't get frustrated. Because if you do get frustrated, overwhelmed, and burn out, then that leads to you neglecting your management, and then we know what happens when you neglect your diabetes management. So to start out with, what is motivation? And I looked up some definitions here, and I'll give you the first definition is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. The second definition here is the general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Okay, so motivation is what's going to get us to do the things that we need to do. All right, I like this definition the best. The general desire or willingness of someone to do something. Now, right off the bat, if you don't have a desire and you don't have a willingness to take care of your blood sugar levels, you're not. It's simple as that. Nobody's going to force you. Nobody can do it for you. And I see how diabetes affects a lot of families in that way because no one can do this but you. So you have to have a desire and you have to have a willingness. If you don't have a desire and a willingness, you're never going to be able to stay motivated. You're never even going to be motivated to take care of your blood sugar level. So what is your motive? What is your desire, wants, and urges? So in my case, when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, one of the biggest things, I was in a place of suffering, like I told you early on. I wanted to avoid diabetic complications. I didn't understand how I was diagnosed, and from out of the blue, if I don't take care of myself, something can happen to me either instantly from low blood sugar levels or long-term from diabetic complications. I didn't understand how in 5-10 years, someone so young, I was 22 when I was diagnosed, I could go blind, I could have kidney failure, I could have all these problems with diabetes. Right? So I was in a place where my motive, my desire, my want was I need to avoid diabetic complications at all costs. Right? That was my biggest driving force. The second thing, I wanted to stop fearing low blood sugar levels and insulin. When I would eat food, I would literally sit there in front of my food and just calculate all the carbs and just recalculate everything. And right before I would inject myself with insulin, I would be so terrified, and I would make sure I'm doing everything right, to the point that when I would inject myself with insulin, 30 seconds after my injection shot, I would be terrified. I would think I'm going low. And I started developing these panic attacks. And if you know, panic attacks and low blood sugar levels are similar symptoms. So again, that was my desire and want. I wanted to stop fearing low blood sugar levels because it destroyed my life. I couldn't do anything that I wanted to do because of that fear. The third thing here is I wanted to feel normal. And in that case, just to explain myself a little bit more, I wanted to feel like I did before my diagnosis, where I could do the things I wanted to do. I could be myself. I could be spontaneous. If I want to go somewhere, I could go without fear. If I wanted to do something, I could do it without being scared of blood sugar levels and diabetes. If I wanted to dream, if I wanted to have my future, a plan for a future, I didn't want to be scared that I wouldn't be able to do that because of my health, because of my type 1 diabetes. And now the last thing, I wanted to look good. And you guys might think this is funny, but when I was diagnosed, I started injecting myself with insulin, and I gained a lot of weight because I was going into DKA before my diagnosis, and insulin helped me process the food a lot better. And when I started gaining weight, I became even more depressed. It added more fuel to the fire, per se. And I didn't like how I looked after my diagnosis and injecting insulin. I wanted to look good. So that was another one of my wants, desires. I wanted to be in good shape, good physical shape. All right. So you can see these are my motives. And I truly believe that my motives is what gets me results with type 1 diabetes. And I'm able to maintain because of my motives, because of my desires. It's not just something like, oh, well, you know, my doctor wants me to do better with my diabetes. No. Not at all. It has nothing to do with anybody else but me. It has nothing to do with my doctors. It has to do with me wanting to get out of a place of suffering and into a place that I'm happy with. I wanted to be in a good place with my diabetes, with my health, with my life. All right, so let's talk about why equals your how. Now, I truly believe that if you sit there and you plan, okay, this is why I have to do this, and you ask yourself, why must I do this? Why? Okay, I have to do this to be healthy for my family. Why? Because if I don't do this, I won't be able to have a family. Why? Because I'm not going to be strong enough for them. I'm not going to be able to take care of them. Why? So if you keep on asking yourself why and why, it's like an onion and you're peeling back the layers. You must get to a really deep place with yourself and continue to ask yourself why, and then that becomes your how. You got to understand that if your motive is there, you're going to find the solution. You're going to find the answers. You're going to find a way to actually do this, right? In this case, one of my whys was to avoid diabetic complications. And I was desperate to avoid diabetic complications. I didn't want to deal with any of them. And I started doing more and more research and more research and more research. And I realized that the way how to avoid diabetic complications is by having the same blood sugar levels as someone with a working pancreas. If I'm a type 1 diabetic but can emulate the same blood sugar levels as someone with a working pancreas, have my A1Cs in a healthy place, I will avoid diabetic complications. I won't have them. So you can see how my why in that case equaled my how. Now I want to give you some sort of advice here. Start taking action by doing what you know you should be doing. If you want to start improving the way you manage your diabetes and your blood sugar levels, you must start taking action to the little things you know you should be doing. Maybe something worked in the past that you have to do again, or maybe you just have to check more often your blood sugar levels, or maybe you have to give yourself corrections, or maybe you have to change the way you eat. Whatever it may be, there's something that you could do right now in order for you to start improving the way you manage diabetes. So start with that. But always make sure that you define your motive first, because whatever you do, it won't be able to sustain. Now that's going to bring me to this quote here that I wrote, and it's motivation gets you going, but discipline keeps you growing. So at the end of the day, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Motivation is a feeling that comes and goes. In the beginning, you might be like, yeah, let's do this. I want to improve my A1Cs. I want to improve my blood sugar levels. I want to be motivated to be healthy. The motivation is going to get you going, but then the discipline is going to keep you growing. And what does that mean? Is that there's going to be days that you don't feel like managing your blood sugar levels. There's going to be days that you don't feel like doing the things that you know you should be doing, but you have to stay disciplined in order for you to continue improving on your health. Because as you know, type 1 diabetes is not something that goes away. This is something that we have for the rest of our lives. So it's very important that you stay disciplined in doing the things that you know you should be doing, following the habits that are going to lead you to long-term results with your diabetes. And that is priority here, right? Because I'm gonna be honest with you. Some days you're gonna be motivated, some days you're not, and that's the truth. That's the truth of life, you know. But in order for us to be successful in the things that we actually want to get to, we got to first define our motives, and then be disciplined in order for us to reach there, right? And once we reach, now we got to maintain, right? Once I reach my A1Cs below 5.7, now it was a maintaining phase. And I'm happy to maintain. I'm disciplined to maintain my blood sugar levels. And at this point, it's not even hard for me because it became part of who I am. So I want to give you a pro tip here. And this is something it's going to be very effective for you as a type 1 diabetic. You have to surround yourself with like-minded people. And I guarantee if you're watching this video, you do not know many type 1s, right? It's hard as a type 1 diabetic because you feel so alone throughout this journey, and you feel like, why am I putting all this effort? Like, nobody actually sees what I'm putting, the efforts that I have to put through. Nobody understands what I actually have to deal with. And that's why it's important to surround yourself with like-minded people. It's important to surround yourself with other diabetics that are looking to thrive with diabetes, not just survive, that are looking to become the best versions of themselves despite having this complicated health condition. And I'm not going to tug diabetes under the rug and pretend, oh, it's easy. No, it's a difficult thing. But you got to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with people that push you to become the best version of yourself, and not people that fill your mind with toxic, and also not just being alone through this, right? Being alone makes managing diabetes a lot harder because you feel alone. We're not meant to go through this life alone. And if you're someone that is struggling with type 1 diabetes and doesn't, okay, Martin, where do I go? Who do I find that's a type 1 diabetic? I have made a special Facebook group for this reason, right? So click on the description below. I'm going to put the link to this Facebook group. And in this Facebook group, it's only type 1 diabetics. It's going to be for type 1 diabetics that are looking to improve the way they manage their diabetes, that are looking to improve the way they control their blood sugar level. So make sure you click the link to join the group. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you got value from it. And remember, you can do this. You're not alone in this. Just keep on going. Keep your head up. And don't let diabetes win. Don't let this diagnosis affect you in a way where you can't be yourself in this world. You can overcome the hardships this disease brings. You just have to believe in yourself.